The case features support for 3 radiators, a 480mm and a 240mm included, that are all on the same loop, and has this amazing looking clear water distribution block behind the motherboard tray to cool all your components. Digital Storm partnered with EK for the cooling, so it's done by a company that really knows what they're doing, and they even take requests for things like custom chipset coolers and will install custom designed parts within reason. You can also even ask for a specific coolant color. It comes with cable covers and a power supply bridge on the back of the motherboard tray to keep everything tidy looking, and like most cases where you have power supply cables kind of crammed into a corner somewhere, and it features RGB lighting for the interior, exterior, and the cooling. The front I/O includes 2 USB 3.1 ports and a slim optical drive, and of course there's a gotcha. It starts at $5,800 with a CPU-only water cooling loop with flexible tubing instead of the now more premium-seeming rigid solution that I personally don't do because it's a lot of work, which is also why it's expensive, because it's a lot of work. The new cooling system is expected to be coming on January 27th. Which brings us to the Asus ROG GT51. It supports ROG Band and NFC wristband, which you can touch to the case to do 2 different things. You can activate Shadow Drive, a hidden partition for stuff you need to keep private, or you can automatically overclock, setting up a profile that the band will automatically activate to crank up your CPU for gaming and turn it back down to stock if you're just doing something like web browsing. It's actually got more functionality coming later, like auto Windows login. There's a GPU air tunnel that works with a shunt from the bottom front fan to direct air over the GPU, and the front fan has a cool turbine-esque design for the shroud. It features 8 million colors of RGB customization, a USB 3.1 Type-C front connector, pretty cool, mostly that's seen in the back, and it's got an amplified front audio jack for a little bit of extra punch for your headphones. It's available in mid to late Q1 and starting at $1,800. Which finally leads us to the iBuyPower Revolt 2. This guy has a really unique chassis design. It's kind of like this weird but surprisingly cool trapezoid thing. There's a tinted cover over the entirety of the top and half of the front that shows off your GPU on the very top, and up to 2 SSDs in the front, and the sides can be removed to reveal a very interesting internal layout that crams in a surprising amount of non-proprietary hardware, so you could put in pretty much any ITX case, full-size ATX power supply, 3.5-inch drive, and GPU that you could want, including liquid cooling, all without having to deal with any sort of thermal throttling. That bottom can actually support up to a dual 120mm radiator, or a single 120 and a single 140 if you wanted to water cool both the CPU and the GPU. It's expected to be available sometime later this month. So thanks for checking out our top 5 gaming desktops from Intel of CES 2016. Get subscribed to Linus Tech Tips so you don't miss any of our awesome content, and thank you very, very much for watching. Welcome to our top 5 Intel-based computers for content creators at CES 2016. First up is the Lenovo ThinkPad P40 Yoga. This is designed for serious content creation on the go, as it's got a Quadro M500M GPU. They collaborated with Wacom on the included pen, which can detect 2,048 separate levels of pressure, and it features a 1440p IPS display that includes tactile feedback to feel more like writing on real paper. It comes with a Skylake Core i7 and up to 512 gigs of SSD storage, and is expected to be available in Q1 of 2016 for $1399. The MSI Vortex is next. Have you ever found yourself wanting a workstation that looks kind of like a Mac Pro and is super powerful like a Mac Pro, but isn't a Mac? Well, here it is, the Windows-based cylinder from MSI. It features a Skylake Core i7 desktop processor.
Maybe it's because I'm a sucker for punishment, or maybe it's because your strong objections to my component choices. But I'm back with another holiday buyer's guide for the gamer in your life who's been really, really nice this year. Whether that's your child, brother, sister, or just yourself. FreshBooks is the super simple invoicing solution that lets you get organized, save time, and get paid faster. Click now in the video description to learn more. As usual, we'll be targeting 3 different price points in US dollars before operating system. Under $500, $900 to $1,000, and about $2,000. I'll be using pricing from Newegg US as guidance since their sorting features are excellent and their pricing is generally very similar to other sources like Amazon.com and NCIX, and I will have a link in the video description to all of the products mentioned. So let's start with Just Game, a high-quality, capable 1080p gaming box that doesn't sweat small stuff like upgradability or future-proofness. If it doesn't make the FPS number go up, it does not go in this rig. So for our CPU choice here, Intel has priced themselves completely out of the race with their least expensive quad-core, a must for some modern AAA titles, sitting at $185 US, over a third of our budget. AMD, by contrast, has a variety of budget multi-core CPU options, including the Athlon X4 860K, which is $70 for a chip with 4 steamroller cores and a heatsink in the box. It supports dual-channel RAM, but because our MSI A68HM E33V2 motherboard only has 2 RAM slots, we forewent dual-channel operation with a single 8GB stick of Kingston Value RAM here. This gives us the option to upgrade to 16 gigs of RAM in dual-channel in the future if we buy a similar stick and have a little bit of luck. For the case and power supply, I generally don't really recommend combo bundles because the power supplies included in them are frankly usually barely worth the metal that their housings are made of. But Cooler Master is somewhat of an exception here, so we went with their Elite 350 case with an included 500-watt power supply. It's nothing too sexy, but it'll get the job done, and it has the appropriate 6-pin PCI Express connector for our GTX 960 2GB graphics card. That one was a tough choice, because 2 gigs is about half the frame buffer that AMD offers on competing cards like the R9 370. But at a price like this, we're likely sticking with 1080p gaming for the foreseeable future, and at the prices that NVIDIA partners like EVGA are clearing 2 gig cards to make room for the more expensive 4 gig models, I think I have to go with the 20% better raw GPU performance versus AMD's offering. For storage, I am one of, and apparently one of the only ones on the planet, but I'm one of the people who leans towards a hybrid or SSHD drive on an entry-level system. Seagate's ST1000DX001 1TB hard drive with 8 gigs of MLC SSD cache gets my choice here. Now, compared to last year's system, we saved $6, used the same case, got twice as many, albeit slower CPU cores, opted to save a bit on storage by skipping the boot SSD, but we turned that savings and our RAM savings into nearly double the graphics horsepower by reallocating that budget to the GPU. So I'm confident that in modern games, this year's model is anywhere from 70 to 80% faster than the one from last year's buyer's guide. For our next system, future expandability, features, and usability beyond gaming are much bigger considerations. It's for this reason that we decided to kick things up a notch with an Intel quad-core. Not one of those fancy Skylake ones that are so hard to get your hands on, but a last-generation Haswell-based Core i5-4460. I mean, sure, you lose out on the better onboard graphics and the lower power consumption, and it doesn't have hyperthreading, but it's still a quad-core that boosts to 3.4 gigahertz, and we get to save a few bucks on our motherboard and RAM since we're using a last generation 16 gig kit of G.Skill Ripjaws X DDR3 on an MSI B85 G41. Note that I actually went with MSI's non-gaming branded B85 board in this price range to get something with 4 DIMM slots and dedicated ports for all audio channels and to avoid a killer network card. My personal experience with them is that the extra features they offer are a trade-off against just plain working all the time, so I don't want to pay extra for one of those. For our power